I've never trusted mirrors. Not because of anything supernatural, at least, not at first. It was simpler than that. I just didn't like the idea of seeing myself frozen in a moment I wasn't fully in control of. My smile always looked slightly forced, my eyes a little too tired, my hair never sitting exactly the way it felt on my head. But my discomfort wasn't fear. Not until that morning. It was 6:43 a.m. when everything changed early enough that the sky was still a pale blue, the kind that makes shadows seem longer than they should be. I had just stepped into the bathroom, half asleep, a toothbrush dangling from my mouth. And then I looked into the mirror. My reflection didn't match me. Not at first glance, not obviously. If someone else had been standing there with me, they might not have seen anything wrong. But I noticed instantly because it was subtle, tiny, like the mirror was trying not to get caught. I leaned forward, and he leaned a fraction of a second too late. A single heartbeat of delay, barely noticeable but enough to make my skin prickle. I froze. Toothpaste foam collected in the corner of my mouth. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. You're tired. You slept late. Mirrors play tricks in the morning light. But when I raised my hand to wipe the foam away, my reflection didn't move. Not right away. It stared back at me, completely still, as if deciding whether to respond, and then, a moment too late, it lifted its hand to mimic mine. My heart began to pound. I stepped back, shaking my head, blinking hard. The reflection didn't blink back. It just watched me, eyes wide, unblinking, unhurried, almost curious. I stumbled out of the bathroom so fast, I nearly tripped over the doorway. When I slammed the door shut, something, not a sound, but a pressure seemed to land on the other side. Like someone had rushed toward the mirror at the same time I pulled away from it. I pressed my back to the wall, breathing slowly, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. Mirrors don't lag. Reflections don't move independently. And yet, I felt certain, terrifyingly certain, that someone else had been staring back at me. Someone who had been waiting. Someone who knew I was watching. Someone who didn't care about pretending anymore. I didn't go back in. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't even look at another reflective surface before leaving for work that morning. Not windows, not my phone screen, not the metal elevator doors. But the world has more reflections than I realized. And I wasn't safe from him. Not even a little. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that impossible moment in the mirror, the brief flicker of a face that wasn't mine. Maybe it was just exhaustion, I told myself. Maybe my mind was stretching shadows into shapes. But when morning light came, soft and dull, something else happened that made pretending impossible. I was getting ready for work when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my friend Ari. "Bro, you okay? Why your face look like that in this pic?" I frowned. What pic? He sent another message, this time with a photo attached. It was a selfie we took yesterday, right before I went into the washroom. But something was wrong. Very wrong. Ari was smiling, as normal. But me, my face, my actual face, was slightly turned toward the camera, like I wasn't looking where I should be. That's not the disturbing part. My expression was blank, completely emotionless. But in real life, the moment we took that picture, I had laughed. I remembered laughing. In the photo, there was no laughter, no movement, just a blank stare from me. And then I saw it. Right behind both of us, reflected in the glass door of the shop, was another shape. A thin silhouette, shoulders forward, head slightly tilted, a man. But his face was blurred. Not accidentally blurred like from motion, blurred like someone had smudged it out on purpose. And the worst part? He was facing me. Not the camera. Me. "Who is he?" I typed quickly. "You edited this?" Ari responded immediately. "No. But you look weird. You weren't like that when I took it." I zoomed in again on the reflection. The blurred man stood too close to be unnoticed. I would have felt someone like that behind me. Yet I hadn't sensed a thing. I swallowed hard. The apartment felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. I typed again. "Do you see his face?" Ari replied. "Whose face? The one behind us? There's no one there." My stomach twisted. He didn't see it. Only I did. The man in the reflection wasn't just appearing in mirrors. He was showing up only for me. Trying to explain it away, I put down my phone and paced around my room, repeating the same phrases in my head. "It's just a trick of the light." My phone glitched. The reflection is distorted. I'm tired. But none of that explained why only I could see him, or why his face looked like it had been erased. And definitely not why my own face in the picture seemed disconnected from me. The more I stared at it, the more I felt a chill crawl over my skin. Not cold. Not like the AC breeze. Something else. Something like being observed. I splashed water on my face to calm myself down. When I looked up, nothing unusual. My own tired face stared back. But then, something shifted. Not in the mirror. In me. For half a second, my reflection's expression didn't match what I was doing. My own face lingered longer in a frown, even though I had relaxed. It was tiny, barely noticeable. A fraction of a second. If I hadn't been watching closely, I would have missed it entirely. That's when the realization hit me like a punch. He wasn't just living inside reflections. He was changing them. Or worse, he was learning. At noon, as I tried to work, my phone buzzed again. A message. No name. No number. Just, "Stop ignoring me." I froze. Another bubble appeared. "Turn around." I didn't. I couldn't. But I felt it, that same pressure in the air, the one that made my spine stiffen and my breath catch. For the first time, I understood something terrifying. He didn't want to hurt me. He wanted something else. Something more personal. He wanted my attention. And he was getting better at making sure he had it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that the face in the mirror was just my imagination, my exhausted brain mixing fear with the darkness. But every time I closed my eyes, I felt like someone else was closing them with me, matching my movements, breathing in sync, watching from the other side. By morning, I felt hollow. I walked into the bathroom, half afraid of what I'd see. The mirror was fogged from the shower I'd taken earlier, the glass blurry and harmless. For a moment, I felt relief, until the fog started clearing. Slowly, too slowly, as if someone on the other side was wiping the glass with their own hand. But I wasn't touching it. When the center finally cleared, I nearly stumbled backward. My reflection was there, but it wasn't looking directly at me. It was looking over my shoulder. I spun so fast I almost slipped, but the room was empty, silent, still. When I turned back, my reflection was normal again, mostly, but the smile that smiled didn't belong to me. "Stop it," I whispered. "Stop messing with me." My reflection mouthed the same words, flawlessly synchronized, but the expression didn't match the tone. It looked entertained, mocking. I backed out of the bathroom, slammed the door, and leaned against my bedroom wall until my breathing steadied. Maybe I'm losing it. Maybe I need help. Maybe my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mira, my best friend since forever. "Mira, you okay? You look weird today." A chill crawled through me. I typed back quickly with shaking fingers. "Me? What do you mean? You saw me? Where?" The reply came instantly. "Mira, your reflection in the shop window when we passed by. You weren't with us, but I swear I saw you. And you were smiling." I didn't leave my apartment that morning. My hands trembled as I typed back. Me, Mira, are you joking? Please tell me you're joking. A pause. Then, Mira, I'm not. I thought you were pranking us. But the smile? It wasn't your smile. The room felt colder. I stood up, suddenly unable to stay still. I hurried to my desk and pulled out the only thing that might help me make sense of all this, a dusty old journal where I wrote strange thoughts I didn't want to say out loud. I flipped to a blank page. Someone is using my reflection. And now, other people can see him too. My hands froze as soon as I wrote it. Because the last line I wrote, I didn't remember writing it. He wants to come through. I stared at the words, heart racing. The handwriting was mine, but the pressure of the strokes, the angle, it felt wrong. Like someone copying me. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" A faint tapping sound answered. Not from the door. Not from the window. From the mirror inside the closed bathroom. 3 soft taps. Like knuckles on glass. Tap. 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 I backed away slowly, my throat too tight to scream. For the first time, I understood something terrible. I wasn't dealing with a hallucination. I wasn't imagining a figure in the glass. Something was truly there. And he wasn't trapped. He was knocking. Trying to get out. Trying to reach me. I didn't go to work the next morning. I didn't even sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still see the mirror version of me whispering, "He's awake." I wasn't sure who he was, but I knew he wasn't me. By sunrise, the apartment felt too quiet, like the stillness just before something wrong makes itself known. I didn't trust any reflective surface now. I draped towels over the bathroom mirror, covered the fridge door with a blanket, even turned my phone face down so the black screen wouldn't catch me. I must have looked paranoid. But fear makes you protective, even when you don't understand the threat. Around 10 a.m., someone knocked. 3 soft taps. I froze. No one knocks on my door that early. I moved slowly to the people. It was my neighbor, Priya Messy Bun, oversized hoodie, holding a small bag of groceries. "You didn't answer my texts," she called through the door. "Thought you might be sick." My phone was still face down on the table. I hadn't checked it. I opened the door just enough for her to see half my face. "You okay?" she asked. "You look tired." "I'm fine," I lied, trying to angle myself so none of the hallway mirrors reflected onto me. The elevator at the end of the hall had polished metal doors, and I didn't dare glance in that direction. She lifted the grocery bag. "Brought soup. And, a new pack of candles. Your lights were flickering last night." I blinked. "How'd you know?" "You dropped your curtains for a second. I saw them from the balcony." She hesitated. "And you were talking to someone. Really loudly. Sounded like arguing." My stomach dropped. Last night, I was whispering. I never raised my voice. "Priya, listen," I said carefully. "Did you see anyone else? Anyone inside?" "No, just you." She paused. "But your shadow looked strange." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" She shrugged nervously. "It was stretched across the room, like you were standing far away from where you actually were. Probably just the candlelight." The candlelight had been steady. No flickering then. She handed me the bag. "You sure you're okay? You look like you've seen." A faint movement caught my eye behind her. The elevator door, its silver surface shivered, like someone pressed their face against the metal from the inside. My breath hitched. Priya followed my gaze. "What?" "Don't," I whispered, but it was too late. She took one step toward the elevator, and I saw it. Her reflection in the metal wasn't matching her movements. It wasn't even looking at her. It was smiling at me, a slow, knowing smile. The kind you see in people who understand something terrible that you don't. I grabbed her arm. Get inside. Now! She flinched, startled. Hey, what's wrong? Just go, I said, pulling her into my apartment and shutting the door hard. She stared at me, confused and a little afraid. Why are you acting like this? I pressed my back against the door, shaking. There's something in reflections, I said. Something watching. Something copying. She didn't laugh. She didn't roll her eyes. Instead, she quietly set the groceries down, walked to the table, and sat. Then with a calm, steady voice, she said, I know. The room seemed to tilt. What do you mean, you know? Priya swallowed. I wasn't going to tell you unless you brought it up first. She looked down at her hands. But I haven't trusted mirrors since I was 14. A cold wave washed through me. What did you see? I whispered. She slowly lifted her eyes to mine. Not what? She said. Who? I felt my pulse drum against my throat. I think, she continued softly, you've met him too. The apartment seemed suddenly smaller, the air colder, and in the corner of my eye, the black screen of my phone face down seemed to pulse with a faint reflection I couldn't see yet. Priya leaned forward. There's something you need to know, she said. The first rule of reflections is that they remember you. I didn't sleep the night I saw his hand press against the inside of my mirror. I kept every light in my apartment on, pacing from room to room like movement alone could keep me sane. But no matter where I went, there were reflections. The black TV screen, the microwave door, even the tiny metal teapot on my stove. And in each subtle, almost shy was a silhouette standing just over my shoulder. I tried not to look directly, but reflections have a way of pulling your eyes toward truth you don't want. By sunrise, I made a decision. I had to talk to someone. Not a friend. Not a therapist. Someone who understood mirrors. That's how I ended up back at old Martel's Antiques, the dusty shop where I'd first seen the strange, rippled hand mirror a month ago. I'd bought it on a whim, thinking it would look interesting in my hallway. I never imagined it would be the beginning of everything unraveling. The bell above the door jingled when I entered, but the shop felt dead quiet. Hello? I called out. No answer. Glass cases filled with tarnished silverware and cracked porcelain lined the aisles. But what made my skin crawl wasn't the merchandise, it was the reflections. Every glass surface flickered, as if something had just moved when I wasn't looking. A soft voice came from the back. You saw him, didn't you? I froze. Old Martel stepped out of the shadows, his thin hand shaking as he wiped dust from his spectacles. Describe him, he whispered. I swallowed hard. A man. Tall. No face, just a dark shape. He watches through reflections. Martel lifted a trembling finger. Stop. You already said too much. What does that even mean? I snapped. Who is he? Martel didn't answer at first. He motioned for me to follow him deeper into the store, past shelves stacked with mirrors, thousands of them, some covered, some bare. He stopped at a cracked, oval mirror veiled with an old black cloth. You're being stalked by a reflection walker, he finally said. They don't exist physically. They only exist in surfaces that return your image. Once one sees you, it shares your life. And then, he shut his mouth tightly, like the rest was forbidden. And then what? I stepped closer to him. Martel's eyes filled with fear. Then it waits for the right moment to take your place. My chest tightened. Take my place? How? Martel didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the front door. You must leave now. Cover every reflective surface in your home. Do not look into anything that shows your face. Not even water. Why? What happens if I do? he whispered. "He will learn more of you. And the more he knows, the stronger he grows." I felt cold down to my bones. "But how do I stop him?" Martel's voice trembled. "You can't stop something that lives in reflections. You can only outrun what it learns." That made no sense. "How do you outrun something that can appear everywhere?" Martel's face was pale. "You don't, but you might outsmart it." I opened my mouth to ask how, but at that exact moment, the store's lights flickered and every mirror in the room began to vibrate gently, barely noticeable, like a low hum. Martel stiffened. "He followed you here." I spun around. In the nearest mirror, my reflection looked normal almost. But behind it, in that faint second layer depth, was a shadowy figure closer to me than ever before. Martel grabbed something heavy, a metal candlestick, from a shelf. "Go," he whispered. "Run. Now!" The hum grew louder. Mirrors trembled like something inside them was pushing outward. I bolted out of the store, the bell above the door chiming violently as I sprinted down the street. I didn't stop running until my lungs burned. But even then, every parked car I passed, every glass window I ran by, showed him. A dark shape, no face, growing clearer, watching me grow more afraid. Because that's what he wanted. He lived in reflection, but fed on fear. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment I was staring at the bathroom mirror, heart thudding as the reflection behind me drifted a half-second slower than my real movements. The next moment, I woke up on the living room floor, cheek pressed against the cold tiles, the house dim and silent. For a few seconds, I didn't move. I didn't even breathe, because I realized something horrifying. There were no reflections in the room. The windows should have shown at least a faint ghost of my shape. The glass on the framed photos should have mirrored a little glint of me. Even the black screen of the TV should have held a faint outline. But there was nothing. I wasn't reflected anywhere. My stomach knotted. I raised my hand slowly, timidly, and waved at the dark TV screen. Nothing waved back. Instead, for the first time ever, something else moved. A shape. A silhouette. Not mine. Not even human, exactly, just a tall, stretched outline, like someone standing too close to a funhouse mirror. I scrambled backward, heart in my throat. The silhouette leaned closer to the inside of the TV screen, as if pressing its face against an invisible barrier. Its head crooked sideways, studying me with interest that felt almost hungry. And then tap, tap, tap. 3 soft taps from inside the glass. Not loud, not demanding, just experimenting, as if it wanted to see what kind of reaction I would give. My voice trembled. "What do you want?" The silhouette lifted a hand. Long, thin, shadowy. It pressed its palm slowly to the inside of the screen. A horrible idea flashed through my mind. Maybe reflections don't just show us. Maybe they collect us. Maybe they learn us. I stood up on shaking legs and backed toward the hallway mirror, the wide one I had covered earlier with a blanket. Something inside me screamed not to do this, but I had to know. With trembling fingers, I yanked the blanket away. The mirror should have shown me standing there, terrified and clinging to the fabric. Instead, the mirror showed my room, but without me in it. The walls, the floor, the furniture, all there, but no me. As if the reflection world had erased me entirely. And then, from the center of the mirror, the tall silhouette stepped forward, not toward me, toward my side of reality. It didn't open the surface. It didn't crack it. It just pushed through, like the glass was water disturbed only by ripples. I froze. Its head tilted, studying my face with a curiosity that felt almost intimate. And then, in the softest voice, the first actual sound I had ever heard from it, it whispered something I'll never forget. "You left your reflection with me last night. Now I am borrowing your place." My blood ran cold.
What do you mean?
I managed to choke out. It smiled a slow, stretching curve that didn't fit its face.
When you look into mirrors, a piece of you looks back. Last night, you looked for too long. So I took that piece.
I stumbled backward.
Give it back.
It shook its head.
No, you don't understand. You no longer reflect because you no longer exist in there. But I do.
Then it stepped fully out of the mirror. Its shadow form grew heavier, more solid, more real, while I felt something tug inside my chest, sharp and cold, almost like something was draining away. The silhouette whispered,
"You are becoming the reflection now."
I didn't sleep that night. Not because I wasn't tired, my body felt like it had collapsed hours before, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Not in reflections, not in glass, but in my mind, standing exactly where my fear had left him. Too close, too quiet, too patient. By morning, I decided I needed answers. There was only one place that felt outside his reach: the university's old photography lab. It was the only room on campus with all mirrors removed years ago, after some incident the staff refused to talk about. Students joked it was haunted, but right now, haunted felt safer than watched. I pushed open the heavy double door, and a smell of dust and old chemicals drifted toward me. The room was dim, lit only by a single cracked window. Metal shelves stood against the wall, holding forgotten enlargers and boxes of film no one used anymore. For the first time in days, I felt unwatched. I sat on a stool, inhaling slowly, letting myself believe, even if it was a lie, that this place could protect me. He can't appear if there's no reflection. He can't watch me here. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But the silence changed. It wasn't a sound. It was a pressure, like the air thickened around me. I looked around sharply. Nothing moved. No glass. No mirrors. No reflections. Still, the room didn't feel empty anymore.
"Stop it,"
I whispered to myself.
"You're safe here."
But then my phone screen lit up on its own. A notification. A reflection. And he was standing in it. Not behind me. Not beside me. He was staring directly into the camera, as if the phone wasn't showing a reflection, but a window he was stepping toward. I dropped the phone instantly. It clattered on the concrete floor, screen flickering, the image distorting but still showing him closer than before, his face partially in shadow, expression unreadable.
No, you can't. This room doesn't have."
My breathing stuttered. I backed toward the wall, keeping my eyes on the phone. He lifted a hand, pressed it against the inside of the screen, like he was testing it, like he was trying to break through. My knees almost gave out. This wasn't about mirrors at all. It was never about the surface. He lived in reflections of me. Anything that could show even a distorted version, even a digital one, belonged to him. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and turned the screen face down. The image disappeared, replaced by the darkness of the floor. I didn't know if that was enough. Then someone knocked on the lab door. 3 slow knocks. Not urgent. Not frantic. Just certain. I froze. The knocking continued, steady, deliberate, like whoever was there knew I couldn't ignore it forever. I swallowed.
"Who is it?"
No answer. Just another 3 knocks. I edged closer to the door, though every part of my brain screamed not to. The window on the door was covered with black tape, so I couldn't see who was behind it. My hand hovered over the handle. Then from inside the room, behind me, a low whisper.
"You don't need a mirror for me to find you."
I spun around, but nothing was there. The room was empty. The knocking had stopped. My pulse hammered so hard my vision blurred, and I pressed my back to the door, sliding down until I was sitting on the cold floor. I didn't want to open my eyes, but I forced myself to. Because now I understood the worst part. He wasn't limited to reflections anymore. He knew where I was. Even here. Because the fear I carried with me, that was his doorway. I barely slept after the hallway incident. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw distorted versions of myself blinking a second too late, smiling when I wasn't, tilting their heads like they were listening to someone whispering behind me. Morning light didn't help. I padded into the bathroom, refusing to look at the mirror. I brushed my teeth staring at the sink. I washed my face with my eyes shut. I dried off with a towel as if the mirror wasn't just inches away, but I could feel it, like someone was pressed against the glass from the other side, watching, waiting. I left the apartment without even brushing my hair. My office building was covered in reflective surfaces, sleek panels, elevator chrome, blackened windows. I'd never realized how many until today. The first strange thing happened as soon as I reached my floor. I stepped out of the elevator, and the dark glass wall across from me showed my reflection walking out a full second after I had. Not matching, not delayed, choosing to step out. I froze mid-stride. My reflection didn't. It kept walking toward me. A coworker rounded the corner, and the reflection snapped back into perfect sync, like it had been caught doing something forbidden.
Whoa, you look awful,
Mark said, laughing lightly.
You sick or something? Yeah, something like that.
I avoided every shiny surface on the way to my desk. Around lunch, I went to the storage room to grab archive files. It's a place nobody visits unless they have to concrete walls, buzzing overhead lights, and dusty cardboard boxes stacked like unsteady towers. But today, something was different. Near the back wall, wedged between old file cabinets, stood a full-length mirror. A mirror that absolutely did not belong there.
Who put that here?
I whispered. The air felt heavier around it, like the room was holding its breath. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Don't look away. My stomach dropped. I slowly raised my eyes to the mirror. My reflection wasn't me. He stood exactly where I stood, but everything about him felt wrong. His eyes were too wide, his smile too sharp, his posture too eager, like he'd been waiting for me for hours. I stepped back. He didn't. He took a step toward the glass instead. Closer. Closer. His breath fogged the inside of the mirror. My phone vibrated again. I've been trying to reach you. Another. You keep running. Another. You can't leave until you listen. My knees almost buckled. The reflection lifted a hand. Not waiting. Beckoning. The lights flickered, buzzing so loud it felt like a swarm of wasps had entered the room. For a moment, just a moment, the glass looked like water, like he could step through it any second. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a box. I bolted out of the room and slammed the door, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. When I sprinted to the restroom to splash cold water on my face, I forced myself to look at the mirror. Just a glimpse. Just enough to make sure my reflection was normal. Synchronized. Mine. But at the bottom corner of the glass, barely visible unless you looked closely, I saw something that made my skin crawl. A handprint, pressed on the inside. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the cold press of a mirror nearby, as if its surface leaned toward me, listening. The hotel room was tiny and dim, yet it still held three separate reflective surfaces: the bathroom mirror, the black screen TV, and the window pane. I covered all of them with whatever I could find: towels, a blanket, even my jacket. But even with everything hidden, I kept feeling like he was still watching me through the fabric, as if reflections didn't need light to exist. By sunrise, my nerves were raw. I left the room without looking at anything shiny, not the elevator doors, not the polished lobby floor, not even the metal buttons of the vending machine. I kept my head down, hood pulled up, staring only at the cracks in the pavement as I walked outside. I tried to convince myself that this would break whatever connection he had to me. That maybe, if reflections were his doorway, then avoiding them would starve him out. But the further I walked across the city, the more I noticed something terrifying, not in the casual, curious way strangers sometimes do. No. Their eyes locked on me too long, too intensely, like they all recognized something I didn't. I walked faster, but the stares followed me. A woman pushing a stroller slowed down just to keep watching. An old man on a bench stopped mid-sentence while talking on the phone, head turning as if magnetized by my presence. And every single pair of eyes had the same expression: recognition, fear, pity. As if I was the one who had become strange. As if I was the one trapped behind glass. I ducked into a side street, trying to catch my breath. My heart hammered. They can't all know. This is in my head. It has to be. It has to. A metallic clatter startled me. A trash bin lid rolled across the pavement and settled at my feet. Behind it, a toddler stood frozen, holding his mother's hand. His tiny face was pale. His eyes were locked on mine. Then he tugged on his mother's sleeve and whispered loud enough for me to hear,
"Mom, why does that lady look like the man in the mirror?"
My blood went cold. The mother didn't laugh. She didn't correct him. Her brows pinched together, and she pulled him close, backing away without ever turning her back to me. I stumbled away, throat dry. This was getting worse. Not only was he appearing to me now, other people were seeing him in me, or seeing me in him. Was he copying me? Slowly overriding me? Or was it something far more disturbing? Was I beginning to become his reflection, instead of the other way around? I needed answers, something real, something scientific or grounded or human, something to stop me from spiraling into madness. So I went to the only place that made sense, the old photography shop near the edge of town, the one where my mom used to develop photos before everything went digital. Inside, the smell of dust and chemicals hit me instantly. The owner, Mr. Halden, looked up from behind the counter. He recognized me immediately. He'd known my family for years.
"Long time,"
he said with a gentle smile.
"What brings you here, kid?"
I hesitated.
I need help with something. Something about reflections."
His smile slowly faded. He removed his glasses, set them on the counter, and leaned forward.
"Tell me exactly what you've seen."
So I did. Everything. The man behind my reflection. How he mimicked distortions. How he lingered even after I moved away. How he appeared in reflections that weren't even mine. How my face had begun to flicker into his in the eyes of strangers. While I spoke, Halden didn't interrupt. He didn't laugh. He didn't look skeptical. If anything, he looked resigned, like he'd heard this before. When I finally finished, he sighed long, quiet, heavy.
"I hope none of you would ever deal with this again."
My stomach dropped.
"Again? What do you mean again?"
He walked around the counter and motioned for me to follow him into the back darkroom. But before I stepped inside, he said something that made my skin crawl.
"I knew your mother before she had you, and she told me the same story when she was around your age."
The temperature around me seemed to plummet. My voice barely worked.
"So what is he? What does he want?"
Halden flipped on the red darkroom light. Everything glowed blood-colored.
"He isn't a ghost, and he isn't imaginary."
He paused.
"He's something older than reflections, older than us, and once he notices you, you don't get to ignore him."
My breathing quickened.
"But there is one thing,"
Halden added, his voice low.
"One thing your mother never did. One thing she was too afraid to try."
I swallowed, terrified.
"What?"
He pointed at the far wall of the darkroom, where a tall, dust-covered mirror leaned silently in the corner.
"You have to face him. Directly. Not at a TV screen, not at a window, not in passing. You need a solid mirror. Clear. Unbroken.
My pulse spiked.
Why?
I whispered.
So you can ask him.
Alden said.
Ask him why he chose you.
The red light flickered. The mirror's surface seemed to ripple like water disturbed. And somewhere inside that shifting darkness, I thought I saw movement. I stood in front of the mirror in my apartment, my hands trembling even though I tried to steady them against the sink. The lights flickered overhead just once, like a warning before glowing steady again. The room was silent, but my pulse was so loud in my ears that it felt like the walls were listening. I didn't want to look up. After everything that had happened, the reflections that moved on their own, the copies of me appearing in surfaces, the shadow man watching from behind the glass, this moment felt like walking willingly into a trap. But I had to know. Slowly, I lifted my head. For a moment, my reflection behaved normally. Same eyes, same tired face, same uneasy breath. Then it blinked. I hadn't blinked. I froze completely. My breath caught in my throat as the reflection's eyelids parted again, and it tilted its head, observing me with the patience of someone who had been waiting far too long.
You know who I am now,
it said without its lips moving. The voice wasn't spoken aloud. It was in my mind, like my own thoughts had been rewritten. I stumbled back, but the reflection stepped forward, filling more of the mirror even though I moved away.
You've been trying to understand me,
the voice continued, calm and cold.
But I didn't come here to be understood.
I shook my head.
What do you want from me?
It smiled my smile, but wrong. Too steady. Too sharp.
I want what everyone gives me eventually,
it said.
Attention. Fear. Space to grow.
My throat tightened.
Why me?
Because, it whispered,
you look at yourself more than most. Every doubt, every moment you checked your reflection for reassurance. Every second you wondered who you were becoming. You opened the door.
I swallowed hard.
And now?
I asked quietly. The reflection leaned closer. The glass didn't stop it. Its face pushed forward like the mirror had softened into liquid.
Now I live here,
it said.
Not just in your reflection.
Something shifted behind me, an echo of a footstep. I spun around. Nothing. But when I turned back to the mirror, the reflection was gone. My chest tightened. I stepped closer, raising my hand toward the glass. Still nothing. Just an empty mirror. A cold realization crept through me like ice. He wasn't trapped behind the reflection anymore. He was
right here,
a voice whispered behind me. My breath stopped. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. In the mirror's surface, distorted and faint, a second shadow stood behind mine, much taller, much darker, its edges alive like smoke.
You let me out,
it said softly.
Thank you.
The lights flickered again and again. Then the room went black.